The FIA president recently announced his desire to bring back internal combustion V10s into the world of Formula One. Now, usually any proposal made by the head honcho of this organization would be met with disdain. However, for once in his more or less illustrious reign, Mohammed bin Sulayem managed to make the impact he might have actually desired. People adore the V10s, their sound blasting through the Ardennes forests or the Straits of Old Hockenheim. Yet, if you are to ask journalists and experts, bin Sulayem's proposal seems anything but realistic. Should it be, though? Formula One, at this very moment, thrives on nostalgia. Now more than ever, its marketing is making effective use of its illustrious past. Heroes and villains are brought back to the screen while the voice of Mary Walker sings through your living room once again. Many will have an affection for drivers, teams, or engines they would have never been able to witness themselves. And yes, some old folk are able to put on the rose-tinted glasses and relive the glory days. This can be incredibly blinding in more ways than one. For the record, whether F1 is a good sport, an exciting form of entertainment, or used to be better in the past, all of these assertions are wholly subjective. If anything, the sport's recent comeback into the public consciousness is the closest we have to an objective perspective, and even that is clouded, as well as influenced by whether you think this is actually a good thing. To pinpoint the time frame for which people do feel intense nostalgia seems to be rather tricky as well. Some might feel reverence for the example I picked, the V10 era. Podcasts like Bring Back V10s, countless YouTube videos and such seem to prove the thirst for these beasts of the past. Then again, for some, this high-tech tussle between Schumacher, Hakkinen, Villeneuve, Hill, Frentzen, Coulthard and such might be way too advanced. They'd rather return to the 80s, 70s, or go all the way back to the days of Fangio. Again, all of this is subjective. The only difference is that amongst all of these eras, the V10 period seems to hold the supposed keys to one of F1's biggest problems: the cars. People inside the sport, as well as outside of it, have been complaining about the weight and size of the machines for a long time. Widening the cars might have been one mistake, but the main contributor seems to have been the introduction of the immensely complicated hybrid system in 2014. These two fascio bros seem to regret this step, or seem to anyway, whereas Mercedes and such would have been very chuffed with the outcome. This right here was an attempt to rein in new car manufacturers into the sport. Technologically speaking, internal combustion engines were out of touch with where OEMs were and are still headed. The result? Fun times. After all of this, 2026 is going to see new engine regs. They are trying their best to simplify the current basis while keeping OEMs satisfied. Will it work? Who knows, but it's a complicated situation to work yourself out of. Still, no matter how complicated, convoluted, or contradictory, there are those who proclaim that this is the solution. In terms of the on-track product, it's difficult to fault them. Grand Prix racing could benefit from not being bound to host truck racing every 14 days or so. It seems as though there's another problem with this thought process, one that goes beyond the idea of wanting to satisfy shifty OEMs. Formula One never stands still. It usually hates the idea of having to reverse any kind of technology, and seemingly only does so to reduce costs or increase competitiveness. In terms of promoting yourself as the world leader in racing technology, hopping onto the V10 hype train might seem rather bizarre, irrespective of e-fuel efficiency. It is all smoke and mirrors to some extent. Marketability is key, and as long as
Formula One is
perceived as being archaic, this idea might all fall apart sooner rather than later. Finally, let's say all of this doesn't come up as a problem. F1 receives the noisy boost people have had 20 years to hope for. Will it solve the issue? Possibly, but I have my doubts, to be honest. Racing might improve, despite that seemingly having become secondary in modern F1 storytelling. As long as people are wheel-to-wheel racing, the customer is seemingly satisfied. What I do wonder, are people missing the sound, the on-track action, or the feeling of old F1? There is a reason why I didn't just illustrate the engines themselves earlier on. The V10 era wasn't solely defined by its noise or the cars being immensely nimble compared to now. Everything surrounding the racing tried to present itself as being raw, wacky, enough to spark your imagination with wild ideas and earth-shattering shrills, but not too far out there to not seem reasonable anymore. It felt as if nothing was impossible. Car manufacturers would slowly creep their way into an ever-growing circus. Tire wars were the name of the game, and drama? Well, we got the drama.
I don't think. Out goes Michael Schumacher. That didn't work.
Often on, people will talk of a wow factor regarding this era of Formula One, and you can see it even with modern F1 drivers.
Oh, that sound is just so good, man. I mean...
It wasn't just the engines. They were an important part of it, but they were part of a bigger picture that many adore. Nevertheless, it's this picture, this world of Formula One, this idea of racing, flat out, fuel stop, sex appeal madness, that we will never get back. We will never be able to turn on the time machine and get this back. We can learn from it, absolutely. Try to see what we can glean from it for the benefits of our future. Yet I wonder whether that's what people mean when gushing about V10s in a modern context. Putting such a breathtaking unit into modern cars wouldn't change Formula One at its core. If you dislike this guy, for instance, it's not gonna make him go away, or this guy. Or this guy. If you despise sports washing in F1, louder cars aren't gonna drown out the suffering of those who are crushed under an oppressing regime. US-based shenanigans at Las Vegas or Miami are here to stay, even if given the V10 upgrade. F1's supposed identity in the hands of Liberty Media will not change. If you want that to change, I get it, but V10s themselves aren't gonna bring back the world of racing you once loved. This world you adored was shaped by circumstance, its zeitgeist, a context which is lost to the sands of time. Bring back V10s and other projects arguably do just that, giving you a small capsule of 90s and early 2000s to indulge in, depthening your understanding of past Formula One glory. By the way, to even think of the V10 era as a uniform way of racing would make its revival very difficult. Drastic changes were par for the course between 89 and 05, so whichever V10 season you wish to revert to could lead to immensely different results, irrespective of vibes and such. I do ponder whether people could find what they're looking for in other forms of motorsport. IndyCar, WEC, WRC, DTM, all those and many more. Then again, they do lack the TV comfort of a family get-together on a Sunday afternoon to sit down on the couch and watch a slightly boring slipstream fest at Manicure for 2 hours. Everything has changed since many first stumbled upon the sport they used to love. That doesn't just go for the sport itself, it goes for your life as well. Recreating the sport as it was is one thing. Recreating your life as it was back in the day, the routines, friendships, feelings, frenzy, yeah, that's quite the time-traveling challenge, isn't it? It might seem harsh to point out that you can't turn back time, but the truth is painful. Nostalgia isn't just a blinding tool in terms of perceiving the past to be better. I suppose, other than being politically weaponized by conservative it can be immensely hindering when trying to change the future. Replicating the past is bound to fail, partially because it is literally an impossible task. None of the aspects I outlined are exclusive to the time frame between 1989 and 2005. They're heavily dependent on context. To learn from it, to understand one's desires, dreams, hopes, feelings, that can be incredibly helpful. To dive into the past to grasp what you adored and how it came to be. And in F1 terms, if what you want is disconnected from F1 as it is, maybe it's time to let go. It's okay. you'll be fine. In an age of endless Hollywood remake cinema, unwarranted IP returns and the alike, do we really want to forcefully turn on a non-existent time machine? Do we really want to rerun something we cannot recapture? Or do we look ahead, forging a path unknown before? I suppose the choice is ours, at least partially. Maybe F1 will learn from the past, take its benefits into the future, and build incredible racing at the core of its brand. Whether that's what your heart truly desires, though, that's a different story, and I can't answer that.